Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Bhagavad Guru Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Gurudev, all glories to assembled Vaishnavi devotees, and all glories to Her Grace, Mother VRAJALILA Devi. Hare Krishna, thank you so much for being here, Mother Vraj. You are muted.
All right. Yeah, it's the mercy of all of you that I'm here. Thank you so very much.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. So, dear devotees, today we have Her Grace, Mother VRAJALILA, who will be speaking to us from the Nectarian Srimad Bhagavatam. And of course, Mother VRAJALILA needs no introduction. She is our mother, she is our auntie, she is our sister, and she is a mentor to lots of us, especially on this platform. And I've benefited so much from her, and I continue to benefit from her. Sometimes I give a headache, but that is, I guess it's not too bad. But what is, I personally encourage you all to be very attentive to today's Bhagavatam Katha, because if we remember, Mother Vraj always speaks from the heart, and it's going to be heart-to-heart connection today. So without further ado, Mother, we may put the verse on the screen and you may take it over from here.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Thank you, Saha, my little brother, who I really adore. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 7, text number 51. Hare Krishna, Salika, Prabhu, Madhuvan, Loka, Madhishoda. Thank you. Idam, so I'm going to do the Sanskrit. Idam Bhagavatam Nama, Yanme Bhagavato Ditam, Sangrahoyam Vibhutinam, Twametad Vipulu Kuru. The synonyms are Idam, this, Bhagavatam, the science of Godhead, Nama, of the name, Yat, that which, may, unto me, Bhagavata, by the personality of Godhead, Uditam, enlightened, Sangraha, is the accumulation of, I am, is, Vibhutinam, of the diverse potencies, from your good self, Etat, this science of Godhead, Vipuli, expand, Puru, do it. Srila Prabhupada's translation and purport. O Narada, the science of God, Srimad Bhagavatam, was spoken to me in summary by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it was spoken as the accumulation of his diverse potencies. Please expand the science yourself. Srila Prabhupada purport. The Bhagavatam in a nutshell, spoken by the personality of Godhead in about half a dozen verses, which will appear ahead, is the science of God, and it is the potent representation of the personality of Godhead. He being absolute is non-different from the science of God, Srimad Bhagavatam. Brahmaji received this science of Godhead from the Lord directly, and he handed over the same to Narada, who in his turn ordered Srila Vyasadeva to expand it. So the transcendental knowledge of the Supreme Lord is not mental speculation by the mundane wranglers, but is uncontaminated, eternal, perfect knowledge beyond the jurisdiction of material modes. The Bhagavata Purana is therefore the direct incarnation of the Lord in the form of transcendental sound. And one should receive this transcendental knowledge from the bona fide representative of the Lord in the chain of the cyclic succession, from the Lord to Brahmaji, from Brahmaji to Narada, from Narada to Vyas, and from Vyas to Shukadev Goswami, from Shukadev Goswami to Sutta Goswami. The ripened fruit of the Vedic tree drops from one hand to another without being broken by falling suddenly from a high branch down to the earth. Therefore, unless one hears the signs of Godhead from the bona fide representative of the disciplic succession, as above mentioned, the signs as above mentioned, for one to understand the theme of the signs of Godhead will be a difficult job. It should never be heard from the professional Bhagavatam reciters who earn their livelihood by gratifying the senses of the audience. Oh, my God, so I'll read the, let me do the, okay. I'm going to do the translation.
Sorry, I'll put it back.
Okay. So the translation again. O Narada, the science of God, Srimad Bhagavatam, was spoken to me in summary by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it was spoken as the accumulation of his diverse potencies. Please expand the science yourself. Om Aganati Mirandasya, Ganagana Shalakaya, Jakshur Amanatam Yena, Tasmai Shri Guru Namaha, Jishaitanya Manovishtam, Sahabitam Yena Bhutale, Swayam Rupakadamaya, Tadati Swapadantika, Vandeham Shri Guru, Shita Parakamalam, Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha, Shri Rupam Sagrajatam, Sahagana Raghunatam Tam Sajivam, Sadvaitam Sarabhutam, Parijana Sahitam, Krishna Chaitanya Deva, Shri Radha Krishna Padam, Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam, Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu, Dinabandhu Jagapate, Gopesha Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta Namastute, Tapta Kanchana Gorangi, Radhe Vrindavaneshwari, Vishabhanu Sata Devi, Pranamami Hari Priye, Panchakapatarubhyascha, Vipasindhubhyevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Kadara, Shivasari Shri Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, my dear friends, my dear devotees, thank you so very much. Again, this is a blessing and a privilege and an honor for me to be invited to be a part of this amazing, beautiful Sangha. I appreciate this Sangha so much because, it gives everyone an opportunity to hear and an opportunity to share whatever small realizations we may have. So this is the process, Krishna consciousness, hearing and sharing. So today seems just really appropriate that this verse is speaking about Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Brahma is speaking to Narada Muni about the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our life, our life and soul. If not for the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we would not know anything about Srimad Bhagavatam. At least I wouldn't. And I would not know anything about Lord Brahma and Narada Muni. So this is such an amazing and wonderful opportunity to be able to enter into this arena of exalted souls, speaking about how this Bhagavatam was able to come this far to someone like myself or someone that is in conditioned world and conditioned consciousness. How is that possible that we could, that I and many others could be receiving this incredible knowledge that came directly from Lord Brahma, who actually heard this knowledge by seeing the Lord? So this amazing knowledge is passed down, and this is what Srila Prabhupada is helping us to enter into. um, really, really, let's see, the word I want to use is to make this our life and soul. He's wanting us to understand the value of the Srimad Bhagavatam and how to understand the Srimad Bhagavatam, how to be a recipient of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Because as we all know, there's the entire first canto of this Bhagavatam helps us to understand more about the potency of Bhagavatam. And even to use a word like potency seems so mediocre, because Bhagavatam actually is our means of getting out of this material realm, getting out of Krishna's external energy. So here Prabhupada is explaining, Lord Brahma is explaining to Narada. He said that Srimad Bhagavatam, this Srimad Bhagavatam is the science, it's a science. It's a science of God, a science of the Lord. And so when we hear that word science, we know that we look for facts, we look for data. And so all science is based on understanding something that is proven. And so this Srimad Bhagavatam has been proven. Now, when we think of Bhagavatam, we hear this always, that it is definitely the Lord's compassion on the conditioned souls. So I was hearing, I think I can't remember if it's Kavi Kanapur class or maybe in Chaitanya's class. One of them, I believe they were asked a question about about how to understand why the Lord has placed us in this precarious situation here in the material world. And why is it that we don't have why Krishna has arranged this? Why is this material world arranged? And I think it was Chaitanya.
Yeah, that was Chaitanya Prema Prabhu's class.
Okay, Chaitanya Prema Prabhu's class. I can't remember which one, but both of them were talking about 2 points that I thought are so very important, because both were mentioning in different ways about the Lord's compassion and the Lord's care for us. And so Srimad Bhagavatam is one of the ways that we can understand the compassion and the care of the Lord. I believe Chaitanya Prema's answer was that because we made the choice to be in this material world, in Krishna's external energy, we made that choice. And so because we made that choice, then of course we have to go through certain kinds of purification, which ultimately is a part of why we might suffer in the material world, because of that purification, to really come back to our eternal awareness of who we are. So he was making that point, and he was saying that this is the Lord's mercy, this is the Lord's compassion. Well, Srimad Bhagavatam is ultimately the Lord's compassion, because without the Srimad Bhagavatam, all of the things that we try to talk about, in terms of this conditioned world and our conditioned selves, we would have no awareness if it was not for the fact that Lord Brahma made himself a recipient of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Lord Brahma, as a recipient, he passed it down. And so Prabhupada in this text is emphasizing in his purport the importance of passing this knowledge down. which is disciplic succession, parampara. So again, I want to go back to the beginning, the translation of this of this of this verse, where it's explained that this is the science of God. So Narada, this science of God, Srimad Bhagavatam, was spoken to me in summary. So summary, what does that mean? A short statements. It means something to point to the main points. So the Lord, in summary, spoke this science, which is 18,000 verses, to Lord Brahma in summary. And I won't speak on that summary because I believe that's somebody else's class. However, when we get to the 9th chapter of this canto, second canto, we will learn about the summary, which are these verses are called the Chatur Shloka verses. They are verses 33, 34, 35, 36. Basically, these verses, they help us to understand our relationship with the Lord. They help us to understand our activities in connection with the Lord. And they help us to understand the goal of the Lord. The goal, what is our goal in this life? What is the goal? What are we aspiring for? What is our purpose in this life? So basically, these verses, Krishna is speaking these verses himself. And this is the summary of the verses. And then then Lord Brahma, that it continues to say that the verses were spoken as an accumulation. And I looked that word up, accumulation. So that means the sum total of all the different activities. This is one of the Sanskrit word is explained as a sum total. So there's accumulation. So the Lord just spoke in the essence, if you will, if we can understand that, the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam to Lord Brahma. And then the next Sanskrit word that's really important in this text is diverse potency. So he explains to Narada Muni that this knowledge was spoken about the diverse potency of the Lord, the accumulation, the sum total of the diverse potency. When we look that word up in Sanskrit, that word helps us to understand Krishna in his opulences. How opulent is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? And there's the verse in Bhagavad Gita that explains, Krishna explains that, know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations are just a spring, but a spark of my splendor. So in the purport, Prabhupada explains to us about this verse, and he says that any glorious or beautiful existence should be understood to be but a fragmental manifestation of Krishna's energy, just a part of Krishna's energy, whether it's spiritual or material. So so Lord Brahma is explaining to Narada Muni that that Krishna is speaking this summary of these verses, and this is explaining all about Krishna's spiritual and his material opulences, who Krishna really is. And so Prabhupada then explains that anything that is extraordinarily opulent, anything that is opulent, should be considered to represent Krishna's opulence. So anything that we are understanding in this world helps us to understand more, helps us to connect more with Krishna's opulence. So this Bhagavatam is spoken then to help us to understand the Supreme Lord's opulence. And then in that translation, Lord Brahma then made a request to Narada Muni. And that request is, please expand the science. Please make it available to everyone. Make it available to others. And so this is the mood of the parampara. This is the mood of the cyclic succession. This is the mood of Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma's mood in receiving this knowledge. Remember, he's an instrument. He's receiving something that's designed in order to show the Lord's compassion to help all of us that have chosen to be in this material world. We've all chosen to be here. The Lord then is saying, okay, you made this choice. I want to be compassionate to all of you. So I am going to give this knowledge to my disciple, to someone that I trust, to someone that I know will carry on this knowledge in such a way that it will penetrate the hearts of those that are in my external energy, those that are conditioned. So Lord Brahma, he also knew as a recipient of that knowledge that he will pass that knowledge on to someone else that will receive that knowledge in such a way that they will in turn pass it on without changing anything about the knowledge and making the knowledge available to someone else so that that person can then pass that knowledge on. So we know that Lord Brahma passed it on to Narada Muni. Narada Muni then passed it on to Shukadev Goswami, Vyasadeva, I'm sorry, passed it on to Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva then passed it on to Shukadev Goswami. Shukadev then passed it on to Sutta Goswami. And then the parampara, the disciplic succession, goes on and on like that until we get to Srila Prabhupada, who then, in his compassion, with his mercy, brought that knowledge to the West to make it available for us. Those that have heard that knowledge, they also became recipient of that knowledge. And many of those that heard from Srila Prabhupada have also taken that knowledge to share it with others. They have also expanded that knowledge. And so a nice example of how this knowledge is being expanded is in order to help millions of conditioned souls on this planet is the Vedic planetarium. So the Vedic planetarium is, of course, the vision of the Vedic planetarium was there from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. However, the devotees that are passing down the knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam in visuals, they have taken this message of Lord Brahma, that Lord Brahma gave to Vyasadeva to expand the knowledge. There are many ways that this knowledge can be expanded. However, it is important to have the qualifications to expand this knowledge. Firstly, we need to understand where this knowledge is coming from. Firstly, we need to understand what is the purpose of this knowledge that's there in Srimad Bhagavatam, and how can I access the understanding of this knowledge. So important to know, it must be passed down in disciplic succession, must be passed down. Prabhupada explains to us that Krishna, in the purport, Prabhupada explains that this knowledge is the potent representation of the personality of Godhead. It's the most potent that represents the Supreme Lord. So we may ask the question, why? Why is Bhagavatam the potent representation of the personality of Godhead? So I might want to ask a couple of you on this call, just really quickly. This is not the normal way that we give the Srimad Bhagavatam class. Normally we speak and then there's questions. However, there's many ways we can expand this knowledge. So I'm gonna just ask really quickly, just anyone, maybe one or two of you, why did Prabhupada say that Bhagavatam is the most potent representation of the personality of Godhead? So maybe I'll just ask a couple of scholars. Salika Prabhu. Salika with us?
I think Salika is disappeared.
Okay. All right. Well, I see Heart Chakra is here. So Heart Chakra Prabhu, I would ask you how, but I just want to engage some of these senior devotees on this call. Okay, Heart Chakra Prabhu, why is Bhagavatam the most potent representation of the personality of Godhead? It's like somebody saying, who is the president now in Ghana?
It's called Akufo-Addo.
Akufaku. Okay. So let's say that somebody said he's the most potent representative of Ghana. Why is that? Chakra, is he here? Okay. All right, Sahad, then we got to go to you. Actually, I need to move my camera to see who else is here.
Well, my speculation is that by I think whether Canto 1, chapter 1, verse 1 and 2 of the Bhagavatam itself, I believe gives a little bit of hint to this potency of the Bhagavatam, that by regular attendance to hearing Bhagavatam, all that is blocking us from accessing Krishna will be cleared, and pure devotional service to the Lord will be granted. And there cannot be any better potent way of having that than what the Bhagavatam offers.
Yes, yes, absolutely. That is definitely an understanding of why the Bhagavatam is potent, is a potent representation of the Lord. Some other understanding of why it's the most potent representation of the Lord is because Bhagavatam is really the Lord himself, really Krishna. Krishna and the Bhagavatam are non-different. Bhagavatam is the spoken version of the Lord in sound. So the Lord is unlimited in his potencies. And so the Lord makes himself available through sound in order for us to understand the Lord's potencies, and for us to understand more about the Lord, about his pastimes, about his names, about his activities, about his paraphernalia. All of these aspects of the Lord can be understood through the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of the Supreme Lord, of Krishna. So it's non-different from him. And this Bhagavatam, it needs to be really respected. It should be worshipped and be respected as we just the same as we worship the Lord, because it's non-different than the Lord. And if we're able to do that, then we get the ultimate blessing of the Lord. So the way to do that, how do we understand this potent representation of the personality of Godhead? The way for us to understand this is to carefully study the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I say this often, I'm always in gratitude for those devotees that are studying Srimad Bhagavatam in Ghana and Nigeria and are passing this knowledge on to others and those participants that are taking Srimad Bhagavatam seriously and studying Srimad Bhagavatam. Because when we study Srimad Bhagavatam, we're directly in connection with Krishna, directly. And when we are directly in connection with Krishna, then we get the blessings and the mercy from the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada, he also explains to us that Krishna is absolute. He's non-different than this science of God. Krishna and the knowledge is the same. So, and then, sorry, I'm just getting over COVID, as some of you might know. So let's understand more about this person that was such a receiver of Srimad Bhagavatam, because all of us are trying and wanting to receive the knowledge from Bhagavatam. That's why we come to class. We try to hear something that will make a difference in our life, something that will help us to understand how to love God. We wouldn't take the time, we wouldn't take the energy to come to a Srimad Bhagavatam class if we didn't want to, if we didn't have a desire to understand more about what is my relationship with the Lord. And so let's understand the mood of how to receive the Srimad Bhagavatam. And we're going to understand this through the eyes of Lord Brahma. So I'm going to share a few of the qualifications of Lord Brahma, or a few of the examples of Lord Brahma that made him such a recipient of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and that we can aspire to, not that, well, we could have been a Brahma in some lifetime, but that we can aspire to have this mood when we listen to Srimad Bhagavatam. So one of the first qualities that we want to speak about is the quality of being honest and humble. These are qualifications that Lord Chaitanya has given to us in the Shastakam prayers, that he expands and explains to us the value and the importance of humility. We cannot hear Bhagavatam, really. We cannot understand Bhagavatam if we're not humble and if we're not honest. So as we know, Lord Brahma, he's the father of Narada Muni. This is a most exalted position, right? For Narada Muni to have Lord Brahma as his father. Because Brahma, he has the most important service. He's creating like the whole entire universe. He's like the chief administrator of all the material affairs, everything that's going on in the material world. Brahma is the chief administrator. And he's the direct representative of Krishna. Directly, he's representing the Lord, right? And he's representing the Lord by giving us the Srimad Bhagavatam. First, giving it to Narada Muni, as we said. I keep repeating that, so at least when we go away from this class, we can remember how the disciplic succession started and why it's continuing even today. So in the 5th chapter of the second canto of Bhagavatam, we see that Narada Muni, he's asking Lord Brahma many questions about the creation of the universe. And he's glorifying Lord Brahma as like Brahma is the knower of the universe. He's the controller of everything. He's thinking that Brahma, because Brahma passed down to him the Srimad Bhagavatam, the knowledge of the Lord, he's thinking, oh, Brahma is so great. Brahma is so wonderful. And so he's glorifying Lord Brahma. So let's flip this a little bit to ourselves. Let's flip this kind of way of how Narada Muni, he's glorifying the Lord, right? I'm glorifying Lord Brahma, sorry. He's glorifying Lord Brahma. So in the same way, as conditioned souls, those of us that are in this material world that don't remember our relationship with the Lord, we love to be glorified, isn't it? We want people to talk wonderful about us. We want people to say, beautiful, nice things about us. And so we look for glorification. So if we hear any kind of glorification about us, we perk up. It's like, oh, so wonderful. This person is, saying something so nice about me. However, Lord Brahma is a total opposite. So in order to receive Srimad Bhagavatam, we really do need to check ourselves when we hear glorifications about ourselves. We need to remember, this mood of Lord Brahma. So Brahma, he very humbly stated his position to Narada Muni, and explained to him. He's saying to him, he says, no, I'm like a star, compared to Krishna. Krishna cannot even be explained. Can't even, he didn't have the words to really explain any of Krishna opulence, right? Krishna's opulence is so great. So Brahma is like saying to Narada Muni, no, please don't glorify me like that, because it's not me. And Brahma says, I create after the Lord's creation, after the Lord himself has created, then I create certain things. Krishna then gives me he then empowers me to do some things. But Krishna has already done, or he's already made the creation, right? Brahma is just now going to put like if you have a cake and you put some things on top of the cake. Cake is already there, but you might sprinkle it with some things to make it look a different, make it look a little more attractive or something. So he says, I create after the Lord's creation, by his personal effulgence known as the Brahmajyoti. Just as when the sun manifests its fire and moon, the firmament, the influential planets, and the twinkling stars also manifest their brightness. So basically what he's saying to Narada Muni, he's saying that he in no way wants to boast, or wants to be glorified for the creation, for what he has done, or for his ability to share the Srimad Bhagavatam, to give us the Srimad Bhagavatam, because he's saying that the person that has really done this is Krishna. Krishna is the actual creator of everything, and that he is only his servant. So this is one of the symptoms of those persons that are in disciplic succession, coming down from Lord Brahma, who's the example for us. He teaches us by how he speaks to his son Narada Muni, by not accepting any glorification for what he has done, what he has offered to Narada Muni. He says it comes from Krishna. It came from Krishna. So that's one of the lessons that we can remember from Narada Muni about this Srimad Bhagavatam, that it's very important whenever we speak Bhagavatam to always remember that this Bhagavatam is coming directly from the Lord. Is spoken directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead to Lord Brahma. Now, we might have some questions about that. It's very natural, to have doubts when we hear the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Very natural. However, if we practice this being honest and humble, if we practice this, then our hearts will become purified, and we'll be able to, those doubts will automatically start becoming minimized. They will start becoming less and less. Another important aspect of Lord Brahma hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam is that he was very surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in order for us to hear Bhagavatam, for us to appreciate the Srimad Bhagavatam that's been given to us by Lord Brahma, it's very important to have this earnest, dedicated surrender. And that doesn't come very easily. There's so many challenges that we have in this broken world that we live in. And so to have this earnest surrender actually requires the grace and the mercy of the disciplic, from the disciplic succession. So Brahma, he answers all these intricate questions that Narada Muni asked him. Just like when we hear Bhagavatam, we ask questions, right? And so this has come to us directly from Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma, he's answering the questions of Narada Muni. And these questions aren't normally known, right? Now we have Bhagavatam, we can hear about the personalities in Bhagavatam and learn some of these, some of the ways that we're influenced in this conditioned world. However, when he was concluding all his answers, he told Narada Muni that ultimately, in order to understand this knowledge of Bhagavatam, we must directly hold on to Krishna's lotus feet. So how do we understand this, holding on to Krishna's lotus feet? Krishna's lotus feet means simply that we surrender. We surrender. And I was hearing yesterday someone, I believe, again, it was Chaitanya's class. Again, I'm not sure. I listened to Kavi Kanapur and Chaitanya recently. The surrender, sometimes there's so many questions about surrender. So many doubts about surrender. So surrender is vast, there's so many ways that we're trying to surrender in our lives. However, Brahma tells Narada Muni, the way to really surrender is simply, to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. How do we take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord? One of the ways is to simply hear Srimad Bhagavatam, just like everyone is doing today, simply by hearing. By hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, we are taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. The more we hear Srimad Bhagavatam, the more our doubts will be removed. the more our doubts will be released from our conditioned consciousness. And so Brahma tells Narada Muni, he says, O Narada, because I have caught hold of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead with enthusiasm, with zeal. So whatever I say has proved to not be false. Whatever I say is truth, right? So we're looking for truth. So we need to hear it, this truth, from those that have heard it from the Lord. And so coming down from Lord Brahma, we're very, very fortunate to be in this Brahma Madhava Sampradaya, where we're hearing this knowledge directly being passed down. He says, nothing I say is false. He says, and his mind cannot be deterred. Nothing can happen to his mind. Nothing can happen to his senses. As he's hearing this knowledge that's being told to him by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Brahma gives credit to the Lord again and again for the glories of the Lord, and he gives credit to the glory and glorifies the Lord, and he tells us that he himself has no power. He himself is only receiving whatever he's receiving from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So how do we understand this in our practical application in our daily life? Well, we see that our minds are very unsteady, chanchala, right? When I say we, I'm speaking for myself, right? I'm speaking to myself, because Bhagavatam is really to purify the heart of the speaker. It's to purify those persons that are sharing the knowledge that's there in Bhagavatam. So because our mind may be unsteady, our senses get so very easily distracted towards the temporary things of this world, it's so important that we remember that everything that we have received, to have gratitude for how this knowledge is being given to us, and the mood that this knowledge is being heard, how we are hearing this knowledge, the mood of the person that's receiving this knowledge from the Lord. And so Lord Brahma, he had this mood of total surrender to the lotus feet of the Lord. He's honest, he's humble, he's surrendered. Prabhupada says in this there's a purport that he explains. He says, the devotees are especially protected by the Lord so that they may remain infallible. So Lord Brahma is protected. He says, Prabhupada says, anyone therefore who is earnestly serious in heart and soul about being in intimate touch with the personality of Godhead in the relationship of transcendental loving service will always be infallible in words and actions, right? So this is the mood of those in disciplic succession. What does this actually mean? Transcendental loving service. Hearing Bhagavatam is actually one of the greatest transcendental loving service that we can ever render, right? And we're learning that from those in disciplic succession that are passing this knowledge on, this transcendental knowledge. They're passing this knowledge on that they have received. They have received with such enthusiasm, with such zest, with such appreciation for the Supreme Lord. So Bhagavatam is to help us ultimately to increase our appreciation for the Lord. Another aspect of the mercy of Lord Brahma is that he meditated on the Lord's transcendental form. So Bhagavatam teaches us that, the importance of meditating on the form of the Lord. Lord Brahma, he's, as we said earlier, he's a pure devotee. And by him, how did he meditate on the Lord? How did he do that? Well, he performed austerity, right? And so coming to Srimad Bhagavatam class, like I think of Sahadev, and I think of the austerity that he performs every single day, him and Salika Prabhu, to be on these classes, to be able to facilitate a class, right? Any class, especially the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's not so easy. Even in the material world, when we facilitate workshops and seminars, it's not that easy. And that's on sometimes on, mundane topics. What to speak of facilitating this knowledge about the Supreme Lord? The austerity of physically, whatever commitments they may have, that they put that aside. For example, Sadev, he works in a home, in a nursing home, in a place where people are ill and sick. He put that aside in the mornings to make himself available to be here. Salika, I'm sure he's involved in many, many things. And yet he put that aside to make himself available physically. Emotionally, they're performing austerity because they never know what anyone is going to say, right? When they speak the Srimad Bhagavatam class and how that might impact them emotionally. So they got to be very attentive emotionally to them, to what's going on, to their feelings about the speakers and about what's being said, and very conscious about that. Intellectually, they need to understand this Bhagavatam in relationship to the philosophy and also in relationship to the world. They need to be aware. So in their own way, they are performing different kinds of austerity. So Brahma has taught us, in order to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam, we must perform austerity. There must be some austerity. And that austerity can differ, right, for different people. So Brahma, he was when he's so, he's so grateful. He's so content when he received this knowledge. And he says nothing is comparable to Krishna. Nothing is comparable to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that immediately knocks out anything, especially the impersonal conception of the Lord, right? He says, no, that's in comparison to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The impersonal conception of the Lord means nothing, has no relevance really. So he explains that this impersonal conception of the Lord is condemned, has no value, no value in terms of when we start understanding the beauty, the opulences, the personality, the form. Then this impersonal conception has no meaning. He explains to us, he says, this is in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. He explains, this present form, or any transcendental form expanded by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is equally auspicious for all the universes. So we're in this chapter talking about Krishna's different incarnations, right? Krishna has expanded himself in so many ways. Brahma says it's important in all the different universes. He says, since you have manifested this eternal personal form upon whom your devotees meditate, I, therefore, offer my respectful obeisance unto you. Those who are destined to be dispatched to the path of hell neglect your personal form because of speculating on material topics. So Brahma is very intense. He's got this knowledge and he wants us to get it. And he's saying there's a certain way that we can receive this knowledge. And he says, definitely understand that, yes, Krishna, he incarnates in so many different ways, and his impersonal conception is there. However, that has no relevance. It has no real relevance in terms of understanding bhakti, in terms of understanding this process that we are attempting to commit our lives to. We're attempting to become dedicated and surrendered to in this by following the process of bhakti. And I just have a couple more that I was thinking about, Lord Brahma, that come to me by the mercy of the devotees as I was doing research on this topic, because I got so immersed in Lord Brahma and Narada Muni. It's like, how glorious are these two personalities? They're the ones that brought this, everyone we like to think about those persons that, or we like to, in the material world, think about who's first? Who's first? I'm the first initiated disciple of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. I'm the first initiated disciple of Srila Prabhupada. I'm the first. Well, who's really the first, right? The real first is Lord Brahma and Narada Muni. Those are the first. They are the first. And unless we can understand them and understand their mood, it's really difficult, to claim anything. We can't really claim anything because we are just kind of, at least I speak for myself. It's like pure mercy and pure grace that's come from Lord Brahma and Narada Muni. So another thing is that we need to become determined with our sadhana, right? We see that Brahma himself, when he heard the sound, he tried to find the speaker. He was searching all over for that speaker on all sides. And he was determined. Brahma was determined. So a sadhaka, those of us that are trying to practice Krishna consciousness, we must become determined, because that's the only way to be successful in spiritual life. So Sukadeva Goswami, he talks about Brahma's condition and how he was able to perform his sadhana successfully. And that's because he was so determined to find the sound that we are hearing every single day, right? The sound vibration of the Lord, which is the Srimad Bhagavatam that we get to listen to. And we get to like imbibe some of the things in Srimad Bhagavatam to change our lives, to make us understand that material life has no real reward. There's nothing we can really access in material life that will have any eternal benefit. It must be transformed. Whatever our material desires are must be transformed. And that can only be transformed by our determination and by the grace and mercy of the disciplic succession. So he was determined. He sat down on the lotus seat firmly, and he gave his, attention to practicing austerity. Just like those of you here in this hour and a half, you sit down and you give your attention. You try to hear, not necessarily from me, the speaker, but from the words that's coming through the Bhagavatam, from Lord Brahma and from Narada Muni, because they are actually the recipients of this knowledge. So Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada says, well, expand it. So we expand it, even though in my own case, I'm not very qualified to expand it. However, Prabhupada says, if you speak it the way you heard it, then that's the way to expand it without changing anything that you've heard. So basically, we speak the essence, just like Krishna, he spoke summary to Lord Brahma. We speak the essence as we understand it. We beg and we pray, Lord Brahma and Narada Muni, please help us to share this knowledge that Krishna has so kindly given to us. So as we know, Brahma was born from the navel, right, of the Lord. And we know that there was no other living entities at the time of creation, and no one could be found except Brahma. So Brahma didn't know what to do next. And so then he heard that sound, right? Tapa, right? And he wasn't able to see the speaker. He didn't know, oh, tapa. But he took that instruction and he engaged himself in meditation for 1,000 celestial years. 1,000. That's, can't even, it's explained, of course, in Bhagavatam. So we got to keep reading Bhagavatam. We can understand those years and what it means for us. As he was doing that, he controlled his mind and senses. And by him doing that, that's the lesson for us. So again, going back to Salika and Sahade, sitting for 1.5 hours, listening and facilitating is one of the ways that we can learn to control our mind and senses by them hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Again, I'm saying not necessarily just what the speaker is saying, but hearing really the words of Srila Prabhupada, hearing how this Bhagavatam is being passed down to us hearing how Brahma heard this, what Brahma went through in order to hear this knowledge. When someone sits every day for an hour and a half listening to this, it pierces the heart. There's no doubt. It transforms. It makes changes. So our determination is to be like this, to really become present to our challenges in the material world and to accept we will always be challenged in the material world. There's always a way that our mind is saying one thing and, somehow or other, we know we're supposed to do something else. That's just the nature of the mind and being in this material world until it becomes purified. It becomes fully purified in understanding what Krishna wants, how to please Krishna, right? So let's not blame Krishna for anything that's going on for us. Whatever is going on in the material world in terms of how we label our challenges, let's not blame Krishna. Krishna is so kind, so compassionate, right? So by giving us this mercy of Srimad Bhagavatam through his dear devotee, Lord Brahma, and Lord Brahma being so kind to pass it down, and it keeps being passed down and passed down. And we got this mercy from Srila Prabhupada, and I'm going to keep repeating that because that's something we not to forget. Srila Prabhupada gave this to his representatives. They are passing it down. So if we really want to serve Krishna, then we got to reciprocate. We got to reciprocate by practicing the sadhana. This is being exemplified to us by Lord Brahma. And one more, maybe another one. We got to become prideless. We got to check our pride. We got to look at our pride and see, is my pride a distraction for me to really hear this message of Srimad Bhagavatam? So we need to become aware, because pride, is one of the greatest intoxicants. Pride. It intoxicates us. Unfortunately, just like any intoxication, it makes us fall. Intoxication of any kind will bring us down to our knees, right? So this pride will often bring us down to our knees in crying, because we're, so much caught maybe in our own material desires, and we know and we experience the suffering from it, and we can understand, oh no, this is not helping me, right? So we must be aware of this pride, because we're addicted. We're addicted to fruitative mentality. That's just a given. We don't even have to question that. We don't even have to say, oh, I'm more Krishna conscious than you are. Some people maybe, as we're endeavoring, but in general, most of us are really just struggling, trying to get out, trying to understand, trying to get the grace and the mercy from the disciplic succession to get out of this material conditioning, most of us. So we in devotional service, so we do little nice things and immediately we take credit for it, and we're proud, right? We become proud, because we learn from Bhagavatam, we hear from Narada Muni, we hear from Lord Brahma that Bhagavatam means devotional service. Bhagavatam means, Narada Muni, he wrote a whole book, Narada Bhakti Sutra, on the benefits of engaging in devotional service. We can't speak about devotional service. We can't speak about Bhagavatam without speaking about devotional service, right? That's what Bhagavatam teaches us, how to engage in service to the Lord. So even though Brahma was, he was entrusted with this exalted position, this most exalted position. In one of Brahma's prayers, which is one of my favorite prayers, I love prayers offered by these great personalities. There's so much to learn from how they glorify the Lord, just from reading the prayers in Srimad Bhagavatam, and there are many prayers. Many devotees prayed. So how Brahma exemplifies this pridelessness, we can understand from just studying this verse. And I know for like in my own case, for like quite some time, I don't know, 1 or 2 years, I had this verse posted, every day. I would look at it every day. And these are, I'm not so much of a how do you say, like to learn verses, to just speak this philosophy from the verses, which is really important to learn the verses. So the few that I have learned over the years, I really treasure them because they bring so much nourishment to the soul. So this verse, that Lord Brahma, he's speaking, he says, "Oh my Lord, the unborn, you have shaken hands with me just as a friend does with a friend, as if in equal position. I shall be engaged in the creation of different types of living entities, and I shall be occupied in your service. I shall have no perturbation, and I pray that all this may not give rise to pride, as if I were the supreme." So this is the mood of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. This is Lord Brahma's mood. Is he's praying to the Lord, please, 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 let me not have any, let me become prideless in this amazing service that I am doing. So the greatest fault in our spiritual life is when we become proud of doing some devotional service. That is a detriment, because it's pure mercy that we receive to be engaged in any kind of service. So when we take these services and we think, oh, I'm the doer, then that's the beginning of how our intoxicated minds will start affecting us. That's the beginning. So this lesson we learned from Brahma about receiving Srimad Bhagavatam and sharing Srimad Bhagavatam in terms of pridelessness. I'm going to end this part of it, of this class. I'm going to end with there's a few more lessons we can learn from Lord Brahma. However, I'll end here by sharing this pastime. This pastime I was reading last night, and I heard I heard Srila Radhanath Maharaj speak this pastime. And when it's spoken, it's by these wonderful devotees. They have an impact. They can have an impact on our hearts. And so this pastime is about Devananda Pandit. And I'll just briefly share how this Bhagavatam is so important, because Prabhupada speaks here about who we hear Bhagavatam from and how to become conscious that we're not hearing it from people that are speaking it because they're looking for sense gratification. They're speaking it maybe to get some aggrandizement, to be some profit, adoration, and distinction about the fact that they know they can speak Bhagavatam. So this story of Devananda Pandit, which is in the Chaitanya Bhagavat as well as the Chaitanya Charitamrita, is about this devotee, this person, that he was very eloquent in speaking Srimad Bhagavatam. He loved to speak Srimad Bhagavatam. And he would speak Srimad Bhagavatam, just in big audiences. But what happened is that he wasn't speaking Bhagavatam with any real realization. He recited Bhagavatam, but he didn't have an understanding that Bhagavatam is meant for us, to understand devotional service. He didn't have that awareness. And so, in shortening the story, Srivas Pandit and his disciples, Srivas Pandit had come to hear him speak at one point. And Srivas Pandit, because he's engaged in devotional service, he was listening, but he understood that this Devananda Pandit wasn't speaking from this place of really understanding Srimad Bhagavatam and the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam. Because the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam is to remove ignorance, right, from the living entity. That's the compassion of the Lord. We're in this material world due to ignorance of not understanding our true self. And so Devananda Pandit, he's speaking Bhagavatam, but not in order to relieve the living entity of their misfortune, right? He's just reciting Bhagavatam. And so Lord Chaitanya, Devananda Pandit offended Srivas, right? I believe his disciples did something to Srivas. I can't remember exactly. But anyway, the mood was that he was offensive to Srivas Thakur. Lord Chaitanya heard about this, and Lord Chaitanya was not very happy. Lord Chaitanya heard Devananda Pandit speaking Bhagavatam in a way that was very offensive. And Lord Chaitanya became very disturbed, very annoyed with Devananda Pandit. However, what happened for Devananda Pandit is Vikeshwar Pandit was once visiting. He heard Vikeshwar Pandit's kirtan. Vikeshwar Pandit was visiting his village or something like that. And when he heard Vikeshwar Pandit's kirtan, he became so enamored by that kirtan. He loved the kirtan of Vikeshwar Pandit. And so, of course, when you're a kirtaniya, as those of you that's on the call, like I see Govinda here, he's a kirtaniya. So when Govinda does kirtan, people gather around him, right? Everybody wants to dance and everybody wants to, jump up and down, and they gather around him. Sometimes they gather around in pretty clothes. And, that's what happens with kirtans, right? Everybody becomes ecstatic, especially if the kirtaniya is ecstatic. So Vikeshwar Pandit was ecstatic. And so Devananda Pandit, his heart became affected by that, by hearing the kirtan. So he became like a bouncer, somebody that protects the kirtaniya. Sometimes you'll have a person that makes sure nobody gets too close to the kirtaniya. So Devananda Pandit took that role of trying to protect, he was protecting Vikeshwar Pandit. And in taking that role, he served Vikeshwar Pandit, who was glorifying the Supreme Lord in his kirtan. And by him just performing that little service, that seva, his heart changed. I mean, there's a lot to the story, and I'm sure I'm not giving the whole purport. But what was important to me in this purport is in this story is that Devananda Pandit, even though he committed an offense, he was able to rectify that offense simply by appreciating a Vaishnava for them glorifying the Supreme Lord. And so his appreciation of Srimad Bhagavatam became, Lord Chaitanya actually blessed him. Lord Chaitanya blessed him. And he became a lover of Bhagavatam in terms of truly understanding Srimad Bhagavatam, understanding the real meaning of Bhagavatam. Speaking Srimad Bhagavatam without a devotional mood, it's like it's I don't know how even, it's like poison. It's like poison, drinking poison. If our mood is not devotional, then we really are not really imbibing we will not imbibe the understanding of Srimad Bhagavatam. And one of the primary lessons of Srimad Bhagavatam is to understand the mood of the disciplic succession, how this knowledge is passed down to us, and to be respectful. That is the requirement. If Lord Brahma was respectful to the Lord to hear this knowledge, he respectfully passed it on. And that respect is a major part of the Vaishnava culture. If we don't have that respect, if we think that we're speaking Bhagavatam, but we're not respectful, that's not really speaking Bhagavatam. It's not really hearing Bhagavatam. Not really. It's just like Devananda Pandit, just reciting it. So this mood of respect is a mood that is to be developed in our hearts. That comes by being honest, speaking truth palatably, speaking truth palatably, being honest, and being humble. This is the mood of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is what we're to learn from Brahma, This is what Brahma is teaching, Narada, through Bhagavatam. This is what Narada is speaking, and this is how we've heard it from our Srila Prabhupada, and this is how we've heard it from our revered spiritual masters, whomever they may be. And so we thank you very much. Let us hear Bhagavatam in the right mood. It's not from the person that's sitting and speaking, although that's important. It's from hearing it from those that have heard it in a way that and received it in the right mood. Let us receive Bhagavatam in a mood that is more of a blessing than poison. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mother VRAJALILA, for the beautiful class. Seleka Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mother VRAJALILA, for this beautiful class. And I love so much where you ended the class, hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam from the source. That's a beautiful way of summarizing the whole of the wonderful sharing you've given us today. First, let me, you were asking a question earlier on, and then I was just about to click on the unmute button, then my network went down. Srimad Bhagavatam is the most potent representative of, Srila Prabhupada mentioned it as most potent of the 5 potent gifts, as Srila Rupa Goswami mentioned it in Nectar of Devotion. From my opinion, from my understanding, let me use that word understanding. From my understanding, Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna is the most potent part of himself. And because the Bhagavatam is directly Krishna's himself in his book form, Grantha Avatara, it's said that Srimad Bhagavatam is directly Krishna because all the 12 cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam represent different limbs of Krishna, from his feet to his head. So because it's directly Krishna, so it is said to be the most potent part of all of the Puranas. And in the Padma Purana, I remember vividly that it was said that when that description of different part of the Srimad Bhagavatam as the limbs of Krishna is described, it is Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur make a commentary on that by explaining that if one simply meditate on any verses or the chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam, is as the person meditates directly on the physical form of Krishna manifesting before him. So I think that is what Prabhupada was referring to. That's my understanding. That's much I think I know about that. Thank you very much for the beautiful class.
Yeah, thank you, Salika Prabhu, for sharing. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. So anyone with questions, comments, realizations? We go to His Grace Srimad Varahacharya Prabhu, please. You may unmute.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Prabhupada, all glories to Sri Guru Gauranga. And I think you're much better now. We heard that you had a little challenge with your health.
Yes,
Thank
I had
Krishna
COVID.
to see you again.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. When you were asking that we share about the potency of Bhagavatam. I mean, there was still this verse that came to my mind. And in fact, when you were describing, even before you started asking us to share, when you were talking about the potency of Srimad Bhagavatam, then there is this same verse we use every day to glorify Bhagavatam. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Shaiva Narotamam Devi Saraswati. Okay, I think is Nasta, no, the other one. Nasta Prayusho Bhadresu, Nitya Bhagavata Sevaya, Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhakti Bhavati. Nasta Prayusho. Can we get the translation of that verse? Because I think I know the translation in French, but in English has escaped me now. I think it talks about Bhagavatam being our most important weapon or something like that. Sahajit, can you share that?
Yeah,
Nasta Prayusho Bhagavati.
yeah, I'm trying to do that. I know it's Canto 1, chapter 1. I don't remember the verse.
Verse, I think 19 or 20, and
Let me see.
19, 20, 21, out of those three, choose one.
Let me check here.
Might be in verses before reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. I think
Yeah,
that's where you.
let me look it up here.
But yeah, before
It's
reciting
1 to 8.
from-
It's 1 to 18. It's 1 to
18,
18.
right? 18, okay. 18.
1 to 18.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me do this. 1, 2, 18. Okay, we got it. Nashta Prayashu. Nashta Prayashu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact.
Yeah. So I guess is this. But please, can you look up at Tada Rajastamo Baba? But I guess because the translation in French says which is our most important weapon. Our most important weapon. So, but that the English one is not saying the same. So maybe I'm missing it. Maybe it's Tada Rajastamo Baba, because it's also one of those Bhagavad verses that glorify Bhagavatam. So the translation says it is our most important weapon, and why Bhagavatam, why it is described as our most important weapon. That is why I'm considering it as the potency that we're hearing about is because it's considered to be our most important weapon in overcoming, whatever material inebrities, material delusion problems. So that's what I wanted to contribute, but I'm not sure of the translation and the text. But it's one of those verses that glorify Bhagavatam before we start reciting Bhagavatam. So this one is not saying exactly, but I don't know whether it's translation that is different. Maybe it's the translation that's a bit different. If it is the same, then I don't know. It could be maybe another verse, maybe, I don't know. But that verse says it is our most important weapon. Bhagavatam is our most important weapon. So it's interesting. It always touched me when I'm reading that Bhagavatam is described as the most important weapon. So anyway, that's my contribution. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Shimavara Acharya Prabhu.
Thank you, Varaha Prabhu. Thank you.
Mother Raj, if I may put the verse we discussed today back on the board, on the screen, I should say. I have a question. Oh, let's go to Mitravinda before I ask my question. Mitravinda, Devi, please unmute.
Hare Krishna. Please send my obeisances. All goes good, Sri Prabhupada. I'm grateful that Mother Rajulila is here. It's happy to see her looking well, and I do apologize for coming in late. My question regards Srimad Bhagavatam and Mother Rajulila. You said that it should be spoken with a mood of respect And not a criticism, just an observation. It's not my mood, but the mood of gyan, or recitation of things that have been memorized. That in conjunction with sharing Srimad Bhagavatam, would you please speak on, my question is the essence of Bhagavatam about respect and these other things you said, or is it about love and then the addition of those things on top of it as a respect to Radha, Krishna, and our relationship to one another in a mood of sharing this information of great importance?
Yeah, thank you, Mitra. Thank you so much. Such a beautiful question, because yes, as you said, without the umbrella of love, which is in Srimad Bhagavatam, we understand loving devotion unto this Supreme Lord. That is the umbrella of definitely hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, is to help us develop this loving reciprocation with the Lord, to always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. That is the mood of Srimad Bhagavatam. At the same time, it's difficult to have love if we don't have those other things, as you said. If we don't have respect, it's really hard to develop love. Yeah, so everything, it all goes together. It's not separate. Sometimes, in my experience, the tendency is, and I do this my own self, is to make something one or the other, or I might compare different situations. However, when we hear Bhagavatam, we understand that it can be this and that. It's not necessarily this or that. And so, yeah, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, respect is such a big lesson in most of the pastimes that we hear in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Most of it is to teach us this principle of how to respect ourselves and how to respect others. And that the summum bonum, if you will, of that is that we develop love within our hearts. Yeah, I hope that answers. It's a very simplified answer. And if anyone else has anything here, any of the senior devotees that you would like to share, please feel free to share.
I wanted to thank you for your answer, Mother Rajalila. My question was about your statements, which were perfectly relative. Absolutely. I didn't add anything. I was just trying to get clarity for myself. So I do thank you. Regarding respect, would you, from an interpersonal perspective, relatable to our process of bhakti, would you go into, for the sake and benefit of all of us and anyone who might be listening, speak on what is it that makes us disrespect others in a way that doesn't honor the body as a perfect creation, and our connections with Krishna?
Yeah,
If
and
that's not too far
there are
left.
many. No, there are many. Of course, there are many ways that can be answered, that question. Thank you. However, we understand that one of the primary reasons for being disrespectful is our, sometimes, or I could say my inundation. What's that word? Where I'm totally like my whole, like so much of my being is prideful. It's based on my own pride of thinking, of not really realizing that I am not this body. Not having that realization, that really understanding who I am, that I am really the soul, and what is my purpose, my goal in this life is really to develop loving relationships with the Lord and the Lord's parts and parcels, not even just human beings, but with all living entities. That's my purpose, really. And so when I'm not connected with that, then that pride kicks in of me thinking that I am the controller. I, me, mine, everything revolves around me. If they don't see things the way I see it, then there's a problem. And that's usually related to our intelligence, to our mind, to our intelligence, our ego, and that's related to our lower self, if you will, which is connected to this material world, which is why Krishna spoke this Bhagavatam, so that we can have those that understanding, that realization that, oh, this is my lower self that's doing this. This is not really me, and that's a great fortune. We will always, as we are transforming our lower self, as Srila Prabhupada, through the Bhagavatam, through chanting the holy names, is helping us to transform our lower self to who we really are. Then, there will always, in that transition, we will always be making some mistakes, right? Always, until we've crossed over, so to speak, until that pride becomes so less, until we start really knowing, you know what, I'm just not this body. That's not who I am. And so, yeah, we're in a broken world and we're broken people. And so, as broken people, yes, we will be disrespectful. It goes with the territory. However, Bhagavatam is there to help us. And those persons in the cyclic succession, actually, Lord Chaitanya says there are people that have seen and heard this knowledge from the Lord. We know Brahma did. So it's really to take shelter, to really take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam, not just recite it like Devananda Pandit, but to seriously take shelter. That's not easy. We're broken. It's not easy.
Hare Krishna, thank you for the questions and thank you for the answers. So far, we have Madhuvan Prabhu who has something to share. Madhuvan, what's going on in the forest of Shrimadu? Please go ahead.
all is well. All is well.
Hare Krishna.
Aibo.
All glories to Mother, all glories to your little feet. Thank you very
Hare
much.
Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. I just want to ask a very simple question, because the land when Lord Brahma took his bath from the lotus flower that stems out from the Supreme Lord, Abhidakara Vishnu. Being alone, he was baffled, and initially he started making efforts. He wants to know his source, which he couldn't. Then later he went into austerity. Let's say 1,000 years, just like he told us. Then thereafter, he got instruction from the Supreme, and that knowledge was knowledge of creation, how to create, how to or be a secondary creator, to be precise. Then when he started the creation, when he started the creation, creating, especially when he started creating some entities, we understand that he has some problems also, creating even some not very some entities that are not very, very nice. So he had problems. So my question now is, when exactly the Brahma got the message of Srimad Bhagavatam from Krishna? Because there are two messages now for creation. Then the second one is Bhagavatam. So please, I want to know exactly when the Brahma got this message of Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo Madhuvan Prabhu. I did not completely hear it. Your sound was somewhat muffled.
Yeah.
However, Saha, you might want to.
I'll try to, especially the last part. So he was talking about the history of how Lord Brahma came into existence and how he was so confused. He didn't know what to do. He was asked to perform tapasya, which he did for 1,000 celestial years. And he was given the intelligence to begin to create. But he wants to find out at what point in time did the Lord speak the Bhagavatam to him, for him to pass it on to Narada and asking Narada to expand it.
Yeah, that's a
Madhuva, did I get you right?
You get me 100% correctly. It's
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
You got it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Madhuvan Prabhu. That's such a beautiful question. And I'm guessing, like Sahadev, he always asks questions for the benefit of others. Guessing
No, most of the times I don't know.
your question, I'm guessing, is for the benefit of others, and you are aware of the answer. I have read that, firstly, there are many Brahmas, and there are different creations. In my understanding, in terms of timeline and history, excuse me 1 second. Ekavir Prabhu, my computer's going down. From what I understand from timeline and history, Brahma received this knowledge from Krishna at the time of creation, and then in terms of a kalpa, because when Narada Muni, from what I can remember, and I know there's scholars on here, and you're probably a scholar while you ask that question. However, I'm making a kind of an attempt to answer this question. Narada Muni, before he fell as a Gandharva, because he was a Gandharva before he got this, before he from his mother heard this, he also heard from the sages, right? But before that, it was the kalpa before that when he became a demigod. He became a demigod as a Gandharva, but it was before that time that Narada Muni was able to receive this knowledge from Lord Brahma. Now, in which kalpa that was, and which Brahma, it's the Brahma for this universe, but which kalpa, that I really don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, I've read some things, but I haven't internalized that knowledge. I've read. So yeah, I beg you in the mood of a Ghanaian to please share light on that for us if you have that information.
Hare Krishna. Anyone wants to add something to what Mother Raj has already shared?
Yeah,
okay, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just want to ask Salika. I mean, there are many, of you here that are scholars, so that's a very scholarly question. Haribo Lekavira Prabhu? Yeah, sorry. Trying to my battery is going down and it's plugged in, so I'm not sure what's going on. 100% online.
Chakra Prabhu, please you me on mute.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Mother VRAJALILA.
Yes, Prabhu. Hari Hari.
Thank you very much for your class. As usual, you bring us up and we try to deliberate and see how far we can put this knowledge into our daily life. Yeah, a comment on the question that Prabhu asked. I think the answer is found in the Bhagavad Gita itself.
Chakra Prabhu, it seems there is some noise coming from your end. Okay.
Is it okay now?
Yes.
Yeah, I said the question that the Prabhu asked, I think that, somehow or the other, the answer seems to be in the Bhagavad Gita itself. When Krishna told Arjuna that many births have me and you passed through, I can remember all of this, but you cannot.
Mm-hmm.
And so Krishna was also telling Arjuna that this knowledge I'm telling you, this is not the first time. I have already told the sun god, and the sun god told his son. And through the discipleship session, it has been coming down like this. So, and Krishna for saying that many births have me and you passed through, which means that Krishna is talking about time immemorial.
Yes.
So definitely to speak about the genesis of this knowledge, I don't think any of us can fathom it. I don't think we can even have an idea of it, because Krishna is talking about many births that he and Arjuna has gone through. So similarly, like you were answering that as to exactly which kappa, which particular manifestation that Krishna first put this knowledge to Brahma, I don't think any of us have the idea to actually know the genesis of it. But what we know is that we have been given the idea that it's Brahma who first received the knowledge. So which
Yes.
Brahma, we don't know. Because sometimes Brahma himself, sometimes even Krishna himself is the one who comes himself as Brahma.
Yes.
So whichever of the Brahma, we don't know the first time that this knowledge was imparted to Brahma. All we know is that the succession is coming from Krishna to Brahma and Brahma to Narada. This is the little I understand about.
Thank you, High Chakra Prabhu. Yes, this is what it's nice to have brothers that understand so much about the scriptures. I appreciate this so much. And Madhuvan Prabhu, that was definitely a beautiful question. So yeah, just your intelligence is working, which is wonderful.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Arichakra Prabhu, for that beautiful contribution. Mother, if I may put the verse we discussed today back on the screen.
Okay, Saha, I'm gonna just, because Ekara Prabhu isn't here, I'm gonna just try to figure this out for 1 minute. So I'll just close my thing for a minute. I'm coming right back.
Okay, all right.
It's not plugged in. Okay.
Yeah. So, and the purport, let me put it up here. So back to the text, 2751. And Srila Prabhupada's purport, Bhaktivedanta purport. Srila Prabhupada is emphasizing the importance of hearing the Bhagavatam from Vaishnava devotees. And specifically, we know, especially in India, there are professional reciters of the Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada has also told us in several places that even though we know milk is very nutritious and healthy, but one should not drink milk that has been touched by the lips of a snake. It becomes poisonous. So in other words, we should not be hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from professional reciters who are not devotees. But Mother, since you're still here, the last sentence of the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, it should never be heard from the professional Bhagavatam reciters who earn their livelihood by gratifying the senses of the audience. Now, like I was trying to say, we know there are such professional reciters, but there are also reciters of Bhagavatam who are Vaishnava devotees. And when devotees hear these devotees speak the Bhagavatam, their senses get gratified. And they also receive some sort of remuneration from reciting the Bhagavatam. Now, how do we differentiate such Vaishnava devotees beautifully from their hearts, devotionally sharing the Bhagavatam. But that is just all they do. That is how they earn their livelihood. As opposed to those who do this Bhagavatam recitation so beautifully, but they are not devotees, just like you were referencing Devananda Pandit in that pastime. If you may try to help us differentiate the two different classes of people. Hare Krishna. You are muted.
Yeah, I'm here, Saha. Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you for that beautiful, beautiful question in relationship to trying to kind of understand more about purity, because purity is so very important in terms of hearing Bhagavatam. I'm hearing two distinct different conceptions of hearing Bhagavatam. One is for those that recite Bhagavatam, as Prabhupada is saying in this purport, and they do it for their livelihood, and basically they really engage people's senses by speaking about Rasa Lila. And when they're speaking about Rasa Lila, they speak in such a way that they make Krishna very mundane, right? Like he's like enjoying with the gopis, and they're having this kind of amorous pastimes, and they minimize who Krishna is, and they minimize these pastimes. And oftentimes a lot of people can hear these pastimes, and if they have no real understanding about Krishna and have no real understanding about the gopis and the relationship between the gopis and Krishna, then these people, again, they can be hearing the Bhagavatam just to just to kind of satisfy their own senses about hearing about, some great, lover experience. So Prabhupada is denouncing that kind of sharing of Srimad Bhagavatam, because he's expressing that such persons, that's why he calls them wranglers, right? Because they're cheating people. And however, Prabhupada says there are people that want to be cheated. So there are people that are cheaters, they want to be cheated. So that's one way that that Prabhupada advises us not to hear the Bhagavatam. Another way that you're sharing is a person that may be aspiring to be a devotee of the Lord. They're not, they're aspiring to become a devotee of the Lord. They may be in that intermediate stage of purification. They may not be on that stage of Sudha Bhakta, or they're not on the stage of a Paramahamsa, but they may be on the stage of like trying to, they're in that intermediate stage of purification. They may speak the Srimad Bhagavatam, and they may have some desire to care for their, their maintenance or whatever. So a couple of things is, as we know, Bhagavatam is most purifying, right? So there's a difference between such a person and a person that's speaking Rasa Lila and, just reciting Rasa Lila, and not really, even those persons, eventually they will have some purification, right? They will get some purification, because Bhagavatam is purifying. So if someone is utilizing Bhagavatam as a means of taking, let's say, of taking care of their economical situation, so such persons, they will also become purified in the process of doing that. And such persons, of course, is not considered the same kind of a cheater as someone that's intentionally speaking something from the Bhagavatam and misrepresenting what's in the Bhagavatam. There's a difference with someone that speaks Bhagavatam and they have an intention for, let's say, like I said, economic development, economic care, or whatever. But they're not misrepresenting what's in the Bhagavatam. They're not making up their own theology on the Bhagavatam, right? They may simply be in a very precarious situation where they may have some needs. They may have some needs, and they may get donations in order to facilitate those needs, and they may be speakers of Bhagavatam. It's a different mentality, right? A different mentality. What Prabhupada is speaking about specifically in this purport is that mentality of being just a wrangler. The mentality of a devotee, someone that has some knowledge about devotional service, and they're speaking Bhagavatam. In other words, they somehow have internalized the knowledge enough that they can share it. And they're sharing it. And let's say they have an intention that, okay, I'm going to come, just to break it down, I'm going to come and give this class, and you're going to pay me to give this class. Of course, that's not a very first-class mentality, right? It's not. It's a person they have some needs, they have some material needs, and they're trying to see how to care for those material needs. But that's different. But however, that mentality is different. So something that's important for us as those of us that are wanting to have an intention of sincerity in hearing Bhagavatam, if we are in contact with people like that, or we know people like that, one of the qualities of Lord Brahma is this quality of prayer, right? If we read Brahma's prayers and we hear how sincere he was in receiving this knowledge and sharing this knowledge, then for such persons, if we think we have more sincerity than they do, we can actually pray for them. We can pray for them. We can pray to the Lord, to please help them to really take this knowledge that they have. Krishna has blessed them to have this knowledge. They wouldn't have had it otherwise. Everything comes from the Supreme Lord. That somehow maybe that their needs can be met, can be fulfilled, whatever needs they may have, so that they can be given the opportunity to purely share the knowledge, because at different periods and times of our lives, we really we can experience some material difficulties. Like I can speak for my own life, because I've been trying to be a devotee for all my life, and most of my life as a devotee, I didn't have a job. I did have a job, I did get a job at one point, where as you all know, I've told the story many times, where I served in my job capacity. I got paid for it in Africa, right there in Africa, as as a conflict, as a person that taught conflict resolution. So, but most of my life I didn't have a job. So most of my life I had to depend on others for donations in my life. And sometimes that was really hard for me, because it's kind of like we hear from Bhagavatam that we're like beggars. But to be honest, in the material world, beggars are not so much respected. So I always kind of would think, and sometimes I still do in some ways, that I'm like a beggar, and certainly I was speaking Bhagavatam, certainly I was speaking Bhagavad Gita, but I would depend on others to help me because I didn't have any resources. And it's only now, as I've gotten older and I'm able to have more of a resource source, where I don't have to depend on others, that I'm becoming a little free from that mood that I'm like just a beggar. That is not a nice feeling, to think I'm just a beggar. All I know is, what I've been given by my spiritual master, which is bhakti and sharing bhakti.
Hare Krishna, Mother Raj, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we hear from the scriptures, like Dronacharya,
Mm-hmm.
He favors Dronacharya. Most of us know him to be a Kshatriya, but he wasn't a Kshatriya. He was originally a Brahmin. But because people, did not understand what it means to take care of Brahmins in society, he moved away. So all I'm trying to say is that Krishna has created these four divisions. And if these four divisions are working as they should, certainly some people should have to live a different way, and some people too should have to live a different way. We all cannot live the same way. We all cannot live our livelihoods the same way. So I asked what I asked because sometimes some people make the mistake. To my judgment, it's a mistake, and it's a misjudgment that if a devotee is speaking from the scriptures, he or she should not get anything at all from it, which is not possible because if just as like sometimes I lead kirtan and somebody enjoys the kirtan and then says, "Hey, Prabhu, I really enjoyed your kirtan." Oh, then maybe the person gives me $1. I cannot say, no, I'm not accepting the dollar. The person just appreciated to hear me chant, and from his heart, he donated that. So that is different. But some devotees think that once you perform a devotional service, you should not get any material thing out of it, which to me it's wrong. So I do not think you need to go too deep into explaining in that regard, because especially for those who are devotees, we know that we cannot stop people from expressing their hearts. So if someone has the emotional feeling that this person has done this to me, has said this to me, and it has hurt me, and I want to express my appreciation in this way or that way, I think that is very normal. Hare Krishna.
So, Sahaprabhu, I respect that you have your judgment. However, sometimes your judgment can be questioned. And in this situation, I will share maybe perhaps something that could possibly question your judgment. So for many years, our spiritual master, our revered spiritual master, His Holiness Bhaktitirtha Swami, he did not accept in any way that devotees should get paid for anything that they did devotionally. And I was a recipient of that time, that period, where he adamantly would not allow any of us to get paid for the devotional service we were offering. As a result of that, like you said, there were people that would give donations at times, and that he would say, if somebody gives you a donation, okay, but we're not paying for you to do devotional service. He was adamant with that. Now, there are different administrative spiritual teachers, spiritual masters, that have a different view on that. And neither is right or wrong. This is, their personal views on how they care for their devotees. I can't say that even though I was never, ever in my life paid for devotional service, that I wasn't taken care of, because my godbrothers and godsisters and different people, they always took care of me. At the same time, I can't say it's wrong that, we have devotees that get paid for their devotional service, because they need to be taken care of. The big umbrella is, how do we care for people? How will we care? Will we donate to their care? Will we give them some stipend for their care? That's up to the individual persons that are making those decisions, to those administrators. Otherwise, we inadvertently could be making we could be kind of just judging a very exalted soul that might really believe in giving a stipend, and that wouldn't be so nice in our bhakti, for our bhakti portfolio. So we got to be a little careful.
Yeah.
At the same time, freedom of expression is important. So I appreciate your freedom of expression.
Well, Hare Krishna, thank you so much. His Grace Srimad Bhagavad Prabhu, please you may unmute.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. I think Saradi Prabhu was more or less speaking my mind. And Mataji, in your response, I'm also glad that you said that our Guru there was very, very adamant. And I'm glad the way you describe it, in a very, very, clear cut, that he was very, very adamant that you never get paid for devotional service. And I'm glad that I'm not wrong, because that's been my position. And I think that is because that's how I was brought up. And that's been my position also. Now, you also said that there are different administrative spiritual teachers who have different opinion on that. So it's neither wrong or right. Yeah, okay, I reserve my opinion on that. But I think devotional service means devotional service. It means selfless. And anything that is selfless does not need remuneration or material remuneration. So if there are different spiritual administrative teachers who have different opinion on that, I say I reserve my opinion, but my definition of devotional service, as I know it from the scripture, says it is selfless service out of love. Yeah, there are situations I know that people are, doing like material job in devotional service, and they have to be paid so that they can keep the sanctity. Yes, I understand those, all the conditions, but devotional service in itself, it's a high to be a pratihata, unmotivated and unconditional. Yeah. Now, that is just my comment on your comments to Prabhu's Sahadev's comment. Now, what he said, which was like speaking my mind, is that when you were saying that you were a beggar and devotional life, it's like being a beggar. I also, I was feeling a bit uncomfortable with that definition. And when Sahadev Prabhu responded, it was just speaking my mind. I give you one example, Mataji. There was one of our devotees, we were together in the early days in Nigeria, Gita Govinda Prabhu. And when he went to London and then job. And then he got disturbed, because those who were asking him these questions were devotees, and they were asking him what was his job. That devotional service is not a job, and he got confused. I pity him though, because such questioning will not disturb me, because I understand that I belong to the priestly class of the Varna system, and being a priest is a job. In fact, before I became a devotee, I had to iron that in my mind before I really felt comfortable accepting to be a full-time devotee. I knew very well. I'm taking selling books. I knew, and sometimes I used to tell them exactly what Sahadev Prabhu said. I belong to the intellectual class. We all don't have to start looking for money. Some people have to be the intelligent class. Yeah, before I got it very clear. I never thought that I was a beggar, and up to today, even though I also stand by the fact that we don't pay devotees for their devotional service. So, two things. One is that you can go. One is that I'm sorry, I'm in the traffic.
Okay.
So anyway, I hope my point is clear that I do not I feel uncomfortable accepting the fact that we are beggars because we are devotees. No, we are not beggars. I mean, we are begging for grace and mercy, but we're not beggars to anybody. You know, anyone giving us anything is doing it for his own benefit, not for our own benefit. Krishna takes care of us. Krishna takes care of his devotees, and he's taking care of the whole world. So anyone giving us anything is just doing. I mean, that person is actually doing himself a benefit for giving us something. You know, we don't depend on it. We don't need it to survive, and that person is actually benefiting from our service. I hope you get my point, Mataji. This is how I see it. This is how I
Yes.
see it. I'm not trying to change your thinking, but I personally, as a devotee, all my life, also more than half of my life, I've been a devotee. So, and I've never one day thought that I'm a beggar or I'm in a beggarly. I have no job. I am very proud of being a priest. I belong to a priestly class, and I am proud of that. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for that bhakti principle.
Hare Krishna. Sorry, Srimavara Prabhu. I don't think half of your life you've been a devotee. I think 3/4 of your life you've been a devotee.
You're right.
So I thank you for that.
Hare
Again,
Krishna.
I thank you for that bhakti principle. That is a principle. And yes, thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, dear devotees. It's been 120 minutes since we started enjoying the Srimad Bhagavatam Katha today. And I think it's enough for
I
us.
see Govinda has his hand. Govinda.
Oh, he does? Okay, Govinda Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Mother VRAJALILA want me to say something.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Oh, was my hand up? I don't know, but anyway, well, since you want me to say something, I would like to ask Devananda Pandit, what offense did he actually committed? I would like to know.
According to what I read, Prabhu, and according to what Lord Chaitanya said, he was ready to throw away the Srimad Bhagavatam because Devananda Pandit was not speaking the Bhagavatam from a place of realization of bhakti, from a place of realization of devotional service. It was the devotees that had to stop him, right? The devotees stopped Lord Chaitanya from, as you know this pastime. And so the offense, from what I understand, that or why Lord Chaitanya was angry is because he offended Srivas Thakur by the way that he was reciting Srimad Bhagavatam without any understanding of devotional service, bhakti. That's my understanding.
Yeah, thank you. If I may add this, I think we actually celebrated the disappearance of Devananda Pandit 5 days ago. And I had shared the pastime on our platform. And this actually, this Devananda, like Mother Raj was saying, was a very excellent Srimad Bhagavatam speaker. So many devotees, he had lots of followers who would come to listen to the Bhagavatam. And so one day, Srivas Pandit, one of the Panchatattwas, attended his Srimad Bhagavatam class. And when he heard the words coming from the Bhagavatam, he fell into ecstasy. And the followers and disciples of Devananda thought him to be a crazy man. And so they humiliated him and they dragged him out of the assembly. So Devananda saw all these things, but he did not stop his followers from mistreating Srivas. So later on, when the Lord Chaitanya took his birth, he shared this pastime with Srivas. Because even though Lord Chaitanya had not been born, but being the Supreme Lord, he knew this. So he told Srivas Pandit that because Devananda did this to you, I do not even want to see him. I do not even want to hear his name. until finally, like Mother Raj was saying, Vakreshwara Pandit was performing that ecstatic kirtan, and he started being the bouncer, making sure nobody gets closer to him. And he dragged Vakreshwara Pandit onto his lap and was cleaning the dust and was putting the dust over his own head. And with that, Lord Chaitanya became compassionate upon him. So the lesson in that is what we've been discussing sometimes: sin by commission and sin by omission. Seeing somebody doing something bad to another devotee and being silent is a sin. So I had shared it the past time on the platform. It's still there. It's kind of lengthy, Leela, but this is the essence that I remember. Just like Madhav Raj was saying. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
sir.
Thank you very, very much, sir. See, I asked this question because most often we don't really pay attention to our dealings, even though he said that, you know, the devotional association or to associate with devotees is one of the important aspects in our devotional practice. And so every devotee is eager to associate with devotees. But I see it like, you know, one preparing a soup. You know, you pick different ingredients, cut them, put them together, and then you start cooking. But there's one thing that if you don't add to it, then your cooking will not be complete. Otherwise, I mean, you will not get a taste of the ingredient that you are chopping together. And that thing is salt. And this same salt, if you are putting in salt and you're not careful, the same salt can actually spoil the whole cuttings and all the preparation that you are trying to do. You don't get a taste of your soup. Rather, you spoil the soup completely. You can't even taste it. You can't even drink it. That is one particular thing, salt. If you don't put in, it's a problem. And if you are not careful, it will also spoil or jeopardize the whole thing that you are doing. And so coming in contact with devotee is the most important. Chanting Hare Krishna is very important. And all other aspects of our devotional service are very, very important. But there's one thing, that is to associate with devotees. And associate with devotee is like holding a knife. It is dangerous to hold a knife, but at the same time, it can also be very, very beneficial if you can handle it properly and know how exactly you are using it. And so there's one thing that we most often forgot, and that is to offend a devotee. We don't pay proper attention to offending devotees. But we understand, we read from the scriptures, those who committed offenses against devotees, what happened to them, and all that. But upon hearing all these things, we still don't pay attention. So that's why I asked this question. What advice will you give as to how we should, or we can be able to pay attention not to offend devotees? Because it's very easy for one to offend. Very, very easy. And this is the one thing that can destroy our devotional service. God is one called a mad elephant offense. It can destroy our chanting, all that we have made, and whatever sacrifice that we have tried to perform. It can destroy everything. One thing is disrespecting devotees, offending devotees. But we don't pay attention to this area. How can we pay attention to this area? Not to offend devotees. What is offense? what is not offense? How do we deal with devotees in a way that we can be excused from offending ourselves?
I am very grateful for you sharing, my dear Govinda. I always appreciate hearing from you. When I used to think of myself as a beggar, and thanks to Varaha Prabhu, that I will eliminate that way of thinking. Well, one of the persons that was always very kind during that period where I never got paid for devotional service, and someone that always understood that was Govinda Prabhu, and he was always one of those persons that would offer me donations. I appreciate that from the bottom of my heart, sincerely. So I'm just going to read what Lord Chaitanya said from the Chaitanya Bhagavat when he spoke to Shukadeva Goswami. He says, my dear Shukadev knows the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam, which describes the signs of my glories and position. And then he says, anyone who discriminates between me, my servant, and the book Bhagavatam is certainly destroyed. So this is coming from Lord Chaitanya himself. And then he goes on to talk about how he was angry about how Devananda Pandit allowed his followers to deal with Srivas Pandit. And then as you that statement you made it in the form of a question, but I know that's something that you're very aware of. One of the ways, just in a practical, very secular way, not even devotional, secular way, to prevent ourselves from making offenses to other people in general, is to have a mood of observation. Just be observant and not as judgmental. Just observe. Be still and observe before we, before we surrender to the mind that is always going to judge. The mind is always going to criticize. That's the nature of the mind. And before we do that, just observe and take time to observe. This observation, I'm not giving this from a practical point. I'm giving this from what I teach in my seminars. Just learn to observe. Just check in with ourselves and see, okay, I'm observing the situation. What am I feeling? What feelings is it bringing up for me? Okay, it's bringing up anger. It's bringing up fear. It's bringing up disturbance, whatever feeling. Be in contact with that, with ourselves. Connect with that. What is it that I need? Oh, I need righteousness. Oh, I need, people to, be forthcoming, or whatever it is that we may need. Check in with all of those things before we make a judgment, before we criticize externally. And if possible, once we are aware of all those things within ourselves, make a request from those persons. You know what? I'm feeling really hurt and angry by you saying blah, 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 or doing blah, 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 blah. Can you please explain this to me? I'm not so aware of what you might mean or what your intentions might be. Can you please help me? You see, we have not learned to communicate with each other, Govinda. That's one of our challenges. That's just regular life. I'm not even talking about getting into the devotional atmosphere. Devotional atmosphere, we have many ways of how Lord Chaitanya helps us to understand how to become humble. And like you said, that's the mad elephant offense. Gurudev wrote a whole book. Our spiritual master wrote a whole book about the mad elephant offense, offending other devotees. But we can't understand this if we don't understand ourselves. It's very difficult. We're like trained to be like, to give responses. We're trained like that. We're trained. So we got to connect with ourselves deeper. This is why introspection and reflection is so important in a devotee's life. We got to do that. We can't even share the scripture unless we really have some understanding of what's going on within ourselves. And if we can't communicate with each other, what are we doing? What are we doing? So, yeah, learning some basic communication skills, learning how to speak palatably and not violently, We commit so much violence every day, just our speaking. Just taking that verse of Bhagavad Gita, I believe it's 17:15, how to speak. That's one of the things that's most detrimental in our world today. Not even, just I mean, it's definitely there amongst every one of us, but it's destroying our world. Just how we speak. We speak violently, and it's not easy to learn how to speak non-violently. So those are things. Those are basic practices in our own daily life. To be attentive to. That's how, by being attentive to ourselves. When I react, what am I reacting to? And then have the humility to go back and say, okay, I made a mistake, or I could have done it differently. I'm sorry. That's the greatest, that's the most beautiful way I believe Matrivinda asked that question about love. This is what we're trying to develop in our lives, is real love. Real love. And Lev Chaitanya says, if we discriminate in any way, if we whatever, my servant, we're destroyed. No, that's simple enough for me. Thank you, Governor Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you so much, Governor Prabhu, for the question, and Madam Raj for the answer. So at this point, we're going to handle request all the devotees to kindly unmute. And
Hare Krishna. Good.
Hey, look at this.
Hare Krishna.
Oh my gosh. I love that background.
Thank you for your class.
Thank you, Kusha.
Devotees, you may all unmute and we chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Vancha Kalpanta Ribhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavabhyo. All glories to a great VRAJALILA Devi Darasiki.